Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to focus on box plot. Specifically, box plots that we are going to be using are coming from matplotlib and pandas modules. We're going to be using a sample data set to be looking at how box plot can be used to tease out information in a data set in a way that is going to be helpful for decision makers. So let's get to it. Import our modules that we're going to be using. Pandas, matplotlib, and the dataset we're going to be using is basically the datasets from the populations of China and US in 1965 and 2015, and it basically represents the population's income in those years for those populations. So we read the data and we have China 1965, China 2015, USA 1965, and USA 2015. And these are the descriptions of all of these data. So let's take a look at one of them. So we can see in this China 1965, there are two columns, income and log 10 income. And if you scroll down, we have 1,000 rows. So basically, the population of China is sort of represented, their income based on US 2015 dollars. Their income is like basically presented here. We also have log 10 income is basically sort of like rescaling the data in a way that we don't have too big numbers or too big of a gaps between our numbers. So we're going to be actually using the log 10 of the income, which is basically the log 10 of the actual income or the actual data, actual numbers in the other one. So this is the log 10 of this number. So there are a couple of ways, as in putting down the code to come up with the box plots. So the first way you can do this, you can basically come to say China 1965.income.plot. Once you say .plot and you say kind box, it represents box plot, and it basically does the visual for you. The second way you could do this could be saying this just box plot, and it does the trick for you. So you can see that there is a difference between them, because now we are saying box plot for the data frame, but here we were saying income plot for the plot for the income. So if I add this here, we should be getting the same result. So that's what's happening here is the income has, the series has a function plot, but the series doesn't have that function of box plot. So we sort of like stay with box plot for only for data frames, not series. And then the third way, more universal way, is directly using the matplotlib plt.boxplot, and then put together the data for China 1965 income and China 1965 log 10 income, and then sort of like providing the labels as well. And then once we run this, and now we have the very similar visual as the other one that we just saw. There are some differences between them. We have grids here, we don't have grids there, and some of the colors, but as far as the data and as far as the visual, these are identical visuals. So we could also be using boxplot to be comparing different populations, as we are doing here. So now we want to compare US and China population from 1965, basically. And once we run this, now we can see the large gap between US and China in 1965 as far as the income of the population. So let's change a little bit of the properties, the colors, and everything about this visual. So we could be changing this visual. Instead of having it vertical, we could have it horizontal. So if I change the vert to false, if I change this to false, now my visual is horizontal. Let me change that back to what it was. Then also I could be saying I want these boxes to be filled with colors. I could say patch artist true, it would fill them up with color. That's the difference between this visual and this visual. And then labels are equal labels. Basically, I'm saying what are these labels that I want to be shown here. So if I make it back to go how it was, I have the vertical, and then I'm saying I want them to be not filled with color. Now we can see that they are not filled with color. So let's put them back how it was to go to the next ones. Then we can say notch true or false. Basically, it gives a notch shape to your box. So basically, once you say notch true, that creates that notch shape to your boxes. Not very significant, but something to remember. You could be changing the color of the box. You could be changing the face color and the color. So yellow and red. So once I run this, now the face color, or what's the inside color, is yellow, and the edges or the lines around it is red, as we can see here. Then you can also change the cap color. So you can change these cap colors by saying cap props, and say the color is green. Now you're changing the cap color. You could also be changing the whiskers colors. So these lines also can be changed. So you can change them to blue. Now I'm changing those whiskers color. You could also change the flyers color. So I'm changing the flyers colors. These are called flyers to orange, and their inside color is white. You could also change the median color by doing this code, median props. You could, for example, I'm changing that color to be black, and the median props or median line is black here. So I mean, like, I use different colors for the purpose of presentation here, but let's use only 3 colors to come up with what we did already. So I'm using only black, red, and white. Once I do that, now I have this visual, and I have also changed the vertical to false. So this is sort of like a presentable visual that we can be using to compare US and China population in 1965. So the challenge I have for you is now come up with one visual that compare US and China in both years, 1965 and 2005. So give this a challenge, a try, and see how you can come up with a solution. And then come back, continue watch. So there are 2 ways you can go about this. The first way is sort of like create a one box plot that put together all of these possible data columns. So you put all of these US 1965 log 10, 2015 log 10, China 65 log 10, and China 2015 log 10. And then you give them the appropriate labels, and just like that you create the visual. And now you have those changes. You can see the amount of growth China has had is more than the amount of growth US has had from 1965 to 2015. But still US has had the much larger or better salary or higher salary compared to China in 2015. Another way we could have done this, we could have used subplot to have one visual for US, one visual for China, and put them one next to one another. To do that, I'm creating a function. I call it draw box plot based on the data box and the labels. And I copy my box plot right there, and then I use subplot to put these visuals next to one another by passing these data and these labels. So once I run this, now I have these values, these visuals next to one another, like USA and China. We can see that the values of the Y value, or like the value of population, the income is not matching here. So we could be changing that by changing the plt.axes, the Y mean and Y max. So we can like make sure that the minimum and the maximum of all of these possible points are represented by both of the boxes, basically. So once I run this, now I can have a much better comparison between different population, because the these values are the same for both of these subplots. Now this is a little bit more presentable a visual than this one we saw, but like it does the purpose of comparison.